All right, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for tonight's meeting to discuss zoning changes for DeGolyer Elementary School. My name is Priscilla Rice, and now I'm going to give instructions in Spanish on how to access Spanish language interpretation. Buenas tardes y gracias por participar en esta reunión para discutir cambios de uso de suelo para la escuela DeGolyer. Si desea escuchar esta presentación en español, puede seleccionar la opción en español en la parte inferior derecha de la pantalla. Si por algún motivo no escucha al intérprete, regrese al inglés y vuelva a intentar la opción en español. Si aún no funciona, a favor de avisarnos por el chat. And thank you again for joining us tonight. We will answer questions following the presentation. If you have a question, please raise your hand using the icon at the bottom of the screen. We will call your name so you can unmute. And if you prefer, you can also write your questions in the chat. We will read them and get you an answer as soon as possible. At this time, I would like to introduce Principal Herschel Carter. Principal Carter, would you like to share a few words with everyone?
Yes, I want to thank everybody for taking time out to hear about all things DeGolyer. Super excited about the next phase of our new school bill, which is how will traffic look. So again, be sure to have questions ready if you have some, but again, super excited about the next phase of our journey.
Thank you so much, Principal Carter. I would also like to introduce Katie Linehan. She's the Director of Design for Dallas ISD Construction Services. Katie, would you like to share some words with us?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I'm here representing Chief Alfred. We've unfortunately double booked him tonight, but he wanted to send his regards to the community and let you all know how excited he is for this new school to be built on this site, and looking forward to your comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie. Also, of course, I want to introduce our trustee, Edwin Flores. Trustee Flores, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, absolutely. I want to thank everybody for joining. This is very exciting. This project is very exciting. My kids attended DeGolyer, so kind of I have a personal stake in the school. In addition, I want to thank the taxpayers and the voters for making this possible. I mean, when we passed the 2020 bond, this is one of the replacement schools on that list, and so we look forward to seeing the ongoing work of the architects. They've been very engaged with the community, getting their input on the design, and we're very excited about the project. And I thank everybody for joining. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trustee Flores. We will now pass it on to zoning consultant Carl Crawley with master plan, who is managing the projects, and Carl will take over from here. Carl.
Thank you, Priscilla. My name is Carl Crawley. I'm executive director here at Master Plan. We are the land use and zoning consultant for the district for the 2020 bond program. Our firm has been involved with the district work for over 20 years and all the past bond programs. I am a proud graduate of the DISD, all the way through Riley Elementary, Hill Junior High School, and Skyline High School. So I've been involved in the school district for a long time. The makeup of this meeting, we'll have a presentation from the architect. I'll come back and talk about some things about the transportation, the traffic management plan, and then we'll open it up for questions again. So I'm going to introduce Roberto Diaz, who is the architect. So Roberto, take over. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Roberto Diaz with Keiko Architecture, and we'll do a quick overview of the school project for everybody. Edgar, can you share the presentation? So if we can go to the next slide. So throughout the design process, we've been working with the community, getting input. So these are some of the early images that we had generated for the massing of the school, generally identifying where the school was. Actually, you can see this is fairly early. We had the school facing Dartmoor, which is now facing Flair. So if we can go to the next.
Mom, can we have some ice cream?
So you can see here aerial photograph of the site showing the existing school. We're actually going to be building the school on that empty field just north of the existing school. Existing school will remain in operation while the construction is going on. And once that's completed and the new school open, we'll come through and demolish the old school and redo the fields and provide the parking areas and landscaping on the front of the school. Can you go to the next slide? As you can see here on this diagrammatic, we have the carpool entrance through Flair Drive, looping around the parking lot in the community garden and coming back out on Flair. The school is sited kind of in the upper half of the site with the played fields in the back with playgrounds and basketball court, as well as a small drop-off bus drop-off area to the east. A couple of the highlights of the site is the existing community garden. We have managed to keep that in place. It'll be modified somewhat, but the pavement that's there that was developed by the parents will remain in place, and as well as creating a new entry courtyard into the school to help accentuate that entrance and make it more inviting. You can see the 3D view of the school, looking at the media center kind of in the middle with the that kind of rectangular volume there. Directly to the left of that, you see the gymatorium, cafeteria areas. And then to the right of that is all the classroom wings, pre-K through 5th grade. Looking at the floor plans, you can see the administration, the organization of the school. Up front and center is the admin area with the reception kind of at the end of that courtyard that we showed earlier, coming in through there with a secured entrance through reception, and then flanked to either side by classrooms, starting with pre-K, kindergarten, special education, 1st grade, and then music and art classrooms directly across the hallway. To the left of that, you see the cafeteria and kitchen spaces, and then the gymnasium shelter space with the auditorium incorporated into it. On the 2nd floor, we've got the media center, as well as 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade flanking either side of that core of the building. Kind of through the middle there, right above the media center, you can see the learnings there that we're really excited about developing for the school. And then looking from Flair Drive, you can see a conceptual rendering of the facade of the school. This is from Flair, kind of looking back onto the school. You can see the main facade, the mass for the media center with the administration below, and then the colorful gymnasium auditorium space right there. Different view from the community building, looking towards the classroom wing in kind of the view inside of that courtyard. And then in the forefront, you can see the gymatorium space. Another view close up of the media center with administration down below, kind of looking towards the gymnasium auditorium spaces. And then here you see the classroom wing, seeing the 1st floor again with pre-K and K classrooms on the bottom, and then the, I believe the 2nd and 3rd grade classrooms right up above, and then the 1-story area that you see over there being the special education spaces. And then I'll pass it back to Carl so he can speak of the traffic plan.
The fortunate thing about building basically a whole new school is that we can solve most, if not all, of the traffic problems that are associated with a school that's 60-ish years old, in that range. When the schools were this sort of era of schools were built, that were more kids walking to school, less probably parents driving, more kids riding their bicycles to school. So the schools really weren't set up for traffic and cars to queue. So this plan shows that with that large sort of drive up at the front, we can queue the majority of the cars on this campus. There are some that come off the side. We've then separated the one bus that comes to the school into a separate sort of drive to keep those the conflict points between students and cars and buses. So this shows the traffic management plan, like I said, that keeps most of the cars on site. The problem with most schools, as y'all know, is that afternoon pickup time period. So this keeps those cars on site. There is a little bit of spillover, but as you know now, probably all the streets are surrounding it are pretty much clogged with cars in the afternoon pickup. So this hopefully will solve a lot of that problem. I think the next slide is questions and answers. The next slide. Yes, it is. So we'll open it up. As was mentioned at the front, you can raise your hand. You can go into chat if you have any questions. I don't know if I see any in the chat yet. Let's look. Looks like there may be one. Did you want to, Priscilla, are you going to read the questions?
Sure. From, let's see, Ms. Spofford, she says, this hasn't occurred to me in any of the previous meetings, but does having music classes right next to regular classrooms present a sound concern? That's her first question. Second question, it was brought up previously, but it seems a shame to put in relatively small windows instead of giant ones. No movement on that. And she also says there will still be a bike rack, right? My boys walk to and from school almost every day.
Roberto, you at those questions out there?
Yeah, we've actually we took into consideration the music classrooms, and that is an acoustically enhanced wall that we're putting in the music classrooms. And as well, what we've done is kind of segregated it to one end of that classroom wing, kind of giving the art classroom as a buffer, because it's another fairly active space where the kids are engaged, more engaged in doing things rather than trying to concentrate in their lesson plan. So that's one of the reasons the music and orchestras are where they are at, kind of the farthest away we could put them from everything else. And like I said, we did plan for acoustically enhanced walls in those areas. As far as the windows, it's a collection of
Edgar, why
several
don't you show
windows.
the exterior elevation?
Yeah. So the windows may appear somewhat small. I believe they're 5 feet wide each, and there's 3 windows per classroom. So there's actually 15 feet of window in each classroom. We've kind of broken it up to create a pattern and give it some architectural interest. But there is a good amount of glazing into each classroom. And then if you go to the front, Edgar, showing where the gymnasium is. If you see those dolphins down on the ground, each one of those dolphins is a bicycle rack. I believe they hold about 12 bicycles each, or even perhaps a little bit more. So we've got 3 of those, 2 right there, and then 1 around the corner next to the gymnasium.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Diaz. We also have, let me see, we have another question by Ms. Stewart. She says, will there be an elevator for students with physical disabilities who have classrooms on the 2nd floor?
Yes, there is an elevator right across administration.
Wonderful. Ms. Spofford says the windows in the classrooms are the ones we've talked about before compared to what we have now. It's much less and feels less MCM. And she made a comment about the bike rack, dolphin bike rack. Okay. Wonderful. Do we have any other questions? Anybody want to raise their hand or place in the chat? Okay, we have another one from Ms. Cortez. Will there be traffic signs for parents to only travel west on Flare during drop-off and pickup? Right now, they can travel east and west at all times, and this creates traffic issues and angry drivers.
Well, actually, with the most of the queuing inside the loop of the school, most there will not be any one-way streets surrounding it. So hopefully that will eliminate the problem. I understand that with the traffic going both directions. So it's no plans on one-way streets around it. Now, I will say that considering this will be basically a new school, the traffic management plan will be reviewed, about 6 months after the school opens to see if it works. It works good on paper, but we'll review it at about 6 months after the school opens. And if it needs to be adjusted in that idea of one-way streets or no parking or some other thing comes into play, then it'll be done at that time. So there is a review process. And then after that, it's reviewed every 2 years to see if there's any reason for it to change. So.
Thank you so much, Mr. Crowley. Ms. Cortez also has her hand up. Ms. Cortez, did you also have another question you'd like to ask?
Yes, thank you for the review on that. I was just thinking, because let's say people are lined up behind Dartmoor. They've been waiting, right, for 15, 20 minutes, whatever the case may be, to be dropped off. But then you have people traveling east on Flair. Are they going to be allowed to make a left turn to cut into the rest of the people that have been waiting?
No. What we'll do is you can use cones and other things and staff people to. It's not as much a morning problem as it is an afternoon problem, because as you're aware, morning parents come there's a wide opening of space wise for parents to come.
Not when that tardy bell's about to ring.
Yeah, well, you're right. You're right there. I live across the street from a school, so we actually have a sign there that says, hey, mom, you're late, or hey, parents, you're late. You can't just drop off your kid. You're gonna have to bring them in. So that's sort of a punishment, I think. It cuts down on tardiness. I think it might be something to consider here.
Right.
But we can look at that. I'll work with the traffic engineer. It's usually not the problem is not the drop off. It's usually the pickup, which is the
right. Mess. Yeah, because I can just picture that now.
Yeah, I can picture the tardy. Yes, like I said, I live across the street from a school. I see it all the time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Cortez, and thank you, Mr. Crowley. And let's see, Ms. Spofford also said, but can people travel east on Flair to turn left up into the circle? I'm not sure if that question was already answered.
Yeah, we'll have cones or other access to prevent that, because that does create a conflict point.
Wonderful. Ms. Stewart is saying, when is construction projected to begin and end?
It's projected to begin late spring next year, 2023, and go through construction and school opening in the fall 2024.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions in the chat? Okay, we have one from Ms. Connell. Are there any interior renderings?
Edgar, do you have those that we can share some of those preliminary conceptual views? So you can see here some early conceptual views. This is the cafeteria space looking towards administration. Kind of in the background, you can see a little bit of that learning stair. And here's the learning stair proper, looking kind of down the hallway. The glass that you see on the right is the administration space. And then up above that, you have the media center. And this is a conceptual view, again, of the gymatorium space. So you see the stage there at the end with the basketball goals down. When there's auditorium type uses, all those basketball goals can be retracted back up onto the ceiling, get them out of the way. That's pretty much the renderings that we had for the interior.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I see that we have Ms. Cortez's hand up again. I'm not sure if it was her hand up from the previous question, or if she has another question. Ms. Cortez, do you have another question?
No, I'm sorry. I'll put my hand down.
No, no worries at all. No
Thank
problem. Do we have any other questions? You can either say it, raise your hand, or place it in the chat. Okay, there it is from Ms. Connell. Will there be an auditorium or the gym serves dual purpose?
It is in fact a dual purpose space. It'll be the gymnasium and auditorium.
And Roberta, that's also the storm shelter, correct?
Yes, it is. It is the storm shelter as well.
Okay, we have a question from, we have a question from Ms. Stewart. Any rendering of a classroom to share with us?
No, I do not believe we have a rendered classroom to share.
Okay, thank you. Also, Ms. Spofford is saying we fought hard for 2 spaces, Rachel, but we couldn't get them to agree. Is there a comment? Thank you for your comment, Ms. Spofford. All right, does anybody else have any questions? You don't-
Roberta, why don't you show the traffic management plan one last time in case there are any additional questions?
Sure.
And Roberto, if I'm speaking out of turn, I apologize. Did you have a phasing plan of how you're gonna, how to do this? I didn't know if we saw that or not. Because obviously there's an ongoing school while you're building a new school. Do you have,
Yes.
or I guess, do you have a site plan that shows both schools? So they can
We
see how
actually
they
do.
fit?
We do
Yeah.
have a phasing plan. Well,
Yeah.
so, and again, this is mainly for the contractor to develop their phasing plan as to how they're going to approach the work, but really dividing the site into 2, where you're having the new construction, everything gets fenced off with construction fencing. We're actually calling for the fence along between the 2 schools to be a more of a screened type wall to avoid any views into the construction area. And once that's finished, you know, you kind of come back to the other phase and start the demolition of the old school. Pretty straightforward, but there's a good bit of coordination that the contractors will need to go through to make sure that everything runs smoothly.
Ms. Spofford has a question. She says, will kids still have access to the current playground? And what about the basketball court? And she's saying access during construction.
The playgrounds that are there, we're calling for those to be relocated, and it's something that'll need to be coordinated when we get closer to construction. Basketball courts, I believe those are fully into what's going to be the construction zone.
Thank you. Ms. Connell is also saying, will construction take place during school hours?
I believe so. Once the site is divided up, you know, the contractor will have full use of that kind of a northern side of the site. Obviously, there's a DISD requirements as to, you know, the types of construction activities that can happen during school hours, making sure that there's not too much noise that's disrupting classes and you know, other items as such to make sure that the interruption to the existing classes are minimized as much as possible.
We have a safety manager for the bond office and strict safety protocols that are put into place as part of the bid documents. We also have safety inspectors that are on site throughout the week to check on the status of the construction, ensure that we're not doing anything that will impact our students and cause any harm, along with tracking what's going on at each campus and in the neighborhood.
Ms. Spofford has a comment. My concern is that the kids will still have recess outside, right? And where will that be if the field is under construction, the court is behind the fence, et cetera?
David, you have,
Roberto, you might want to go to the aerial because I think the answer to that is probably going to be more the park that's adjacent. I don't remember exactly what's in that park, but I know there's some.
Yeah, there's been discussion of perhaps utilizing some of the park that's adjacent. And then the other thing that I know we've talked about that is still being coordinated is perhaps using some of the front yard on the current school as a play area. The playgrounds themselves, they would be relocated, as directed.
Thank you so much, Roberto. Let's see, do we have it? We do have another question from Ms. Stannard. What is the square footage of new school as compared with the old school?
The new school is 76,964 gross square feet. The first floor being 49,000 square feet and the second floor being 27,000. Honestly, I do not know what the square footage is of the existing school off the top of my head.
Thank you, Roberto. There's another comment from Ms. Connell. Thank you for addressing minimizing noise during construction. Thank you, Ms. Connell. Ms. Spofford has a question. Do we get new playground equipment with the new building, or are they putting the old stuff back in?
You'll get everything new playground equipment. Everything will be new.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see. Do we get to have input in that as well? Is her second part to her question.
Is that in regards to the design of the playground equipment, colors or selections on that, or?
Ms. Spofford, could you please clarify? Okay, Ms. Spofford says selections, like is there shade, are there swings, etc.
There are shade devices. Katie, do you recall? I can't remember. I know we have several styles that we review with the principal.
we have several styles, and the district does have design standards for the playground equipment that are age appropriate and based on in the installation process. They are reviewed with the principal. So the selections on that have been incorporated into the bid documents.
And they've got it's more than just one thing with them. They've got slides, they've got climbing areas. Each of the options, they have a lot of different pieces incorporated in with them. So it's not just like putting a swing set or one slide there. There's a lot more to it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We also have a comment from Ms. Stannard. Are any solar panels being used?
There are not.
We don't have solar panels, but the district is invested in sustainability. And if you'd like, we can follow up and provide some information, not only on how this particular project meets CHIPS requirements for performance in the state of Texas and the city of Dallas Green Building Code, but we can provide information on sustainable initiatives being undertaken by DISD.
Thank you so much, Katie. Okay, Ms. Spofford says, okay, I can reach out to Mr. Carter. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Do we have any other questions? If you'll kindly place them in the chat or raise your hand, please. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Before we close the meeting, I would like to invite Principal Carter as well as Trustee Flores, if you would like to share some closing remarks before we close out the meeting. Principal Carter?
Yes. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Some really good questions as we, again, investigate how our school is going to be best suited for our Dolphins in our community. So I appreciate everything, and specifically on designs of playground equipment and things of that nature. We will have opportunity to collaborate as a team on campus.
Okay,
Right.
Trustee Flores?
Great. So I just want to, thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to thank the staff and the team for the presentation, the architects, the folks with master plan, everybody who's here. And this was a zoning call, but there were still a lot of questions that were not zoning related, but I thought it was a good opportunity to get those questions answered. And as the project progresses, I'll be glad to host more community meetings like we had in the past to continue to discuss the design. I believe, I can work with the architects and maybe have one in the next month or two. Once that design is fixed, right now it's easy and inexpensive to change things. Once that design is fixed and the zoning is done and all the architect drawings are done, at that point it becomes really, really expensive to change anything. So want to get this work done on the front end, working with Principal Carter and the parents at DeGolyer. As a former dad's club of DeGolyer, it pains me to hear that the playground equipment that we paid for is not going to make it, but I am glad we're getting all brand new stuff. I don't know if we've talked to the Cool Schools people. They also do some pretty neat stuff. I know several of the schools in my political district and throughout the school district have been the recipient of those Cool Schools playgrounds. I know I see mine every day as I walk out in front of Anne Frank. I live right behind Anne Frank Elementary School, and so they do great work. So I'm looking forward to this project moving forward, and I thank everybody for being here.
Thank you so much. I do see one last comment from Ms. Spofford I'd like to share before we close the meeting. Ms. Spofford is saying, as someone who lives across the street, will there be anything from the district to the neighborhood besides these Zoom meetings? Thinking of all my neighbors who don't have kids at DeGolyer, that they would want to know about the traffic and construction noise, etc.
Well, I did mention, but this goes to the Plan Commission this week. It will also go to the City Council in November, I believe, right, Katie? So obviously you'll get two more aspects to talk at those meetings, but the district, and Katie can sort of talk about this, during construction, prior to construction, there's usually an outreach to the direct neighbors to keep them apprised of what's going on. So Katie, if you might want to speak to that.
Yes, that was it. We did send out notification to neighbors for the meeting for tonight. This was the intent, was to communicate with our neighbors who might not have kids at the campus and aren't aware of what's going on. I think that's a valid comment, and we'll work on that, keeping those lines of communication open so that we can let you know what's going on as we begin construction, and introduce you to the project team to let you know who you should contact if you have any issues.
And my apologies, I think I closed the meeting, well, not having closed it yet, a little bit prematurely, because it looks like we do have a couple more questions, which I think is wonderful. We have a question from Ms. Stannard. Are you able to donate the old playground equipment?
I definitely think that's something that we could take into consideration. That's a good question. So David will find out about that, and we can talk to the grounds director for the district and see if there's some way we can reuse it.
And there's also too, just to kind of piggyback on that, I know we walked with Principal Carter out there after one of our previous meetings, and if there's anything that the Mr. Flores, you mentioned a dad's club, but if there's anything out there that does need to be saved like that, I know we put our eyes on some things. So if there's like any dedication things that are out in the courtyard, anything like that, we will take another effort to identify those items, and we'll have opportunity to coordinate saving those. And whether they're back on this campus or they go somewhere else, we'll, like Katie said, we'll make that effort to coordinate.
Wonderful, thank you. Ms. Blanca is saying, I missed the part when this will take place. Is her question. I think the question is in reference to when the construction will take place. Is that correct, Ms. Blanca?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
So we're in the permitting and zoning application process right now. As Roberto mentioned, we're tracking a complete start for construction late winter, spring, and completion for fall 2024.
Thank you. We also have another question from Ms. Spofford. Will there be any effort to tree preservation? One of the great things about Park Forest is all our old trees.
Yes, we have actually taken effort to preserve as many as the old trees as we could. We are losing some during construction, but we are preserving many of them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I believe that was our last question. Any last comments before we close out this wonderful community meeting? Okay, here we go. Ms. Stannard, will you be using low wattage lights at lower heights?
I assume that you're meaning like exterior lights. So all the exterior lights are designed to have the proper cutoffs, so to minimize any light spillage onto other properties. So technically speaking, if you look at the photometric studies, by the time you get to the property line, you're really not throwing light outside of the school property.
Okay, thank you so much. So thanks you to everyone for joining us in this wonderful community meeting, and have a wonderful, safe evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care, Dolphins. Thank you.